Good morning to my fellow participants of this 2024 International Reformation Conference that has been hosted by the Baptist Theological Seminary, Kaduna. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the Professor Moses Aldi, the President of the Baptist Theological Seminary, Kaduna, for this invitation to serve as Commission Speaker. I would equally like to express my thanks to Dr. Ilya, who chairs this 2024 International Reformation Conference. I want to say thank you for this invitation to engage you at this year International Reformation Conference and to be chosen to give a commission paper on this occasion. Let me express my thanks to all participants of this great conference, and I want to welcome you all to Kaduna, Nigeria, as I present to you from Liberia, where I serve as president of the Liberia Baptist Theological Seminary and a commission speaker of this conference. Today I'll be speaking to you on the topic that says the role of public theology in shaping Africa's social and political landscape, a critical examination of faith and public policy in Africa. I'll repeat my topic: the role of public theology in shaping Africa's social and political landscape, a critical examination of faith and public policy in Africa. This paper is marked in four basic directions. Having dealt with the introduction, I will talk about the historical context. Then I will move to the public theology and political engagement. Then I will also consider the challenges to public theology, political engagement. Then I will look at the future directions for public theology in Africa, and then I'll make my conclusion. As a way of introduction, public theology, which is the practice of applying theological insights to public life and societal issues, plays a critical role in shaping the social and political landscapes of various regions around the world. In the context of Africa, where diverse religions coexist alongside complex socio-political realities, public theology emerges as a significant force for advocacy, moral guidance, and social challenges or social changes. This paper seeks to explore the impact of public theology on Africa's social and political dynamics, particularly how it influences public policy and promotes social justice. Historically, the relationship between religion and politics in Africa has been intricate and multifaceted. Many African nations have experienced the interweaving of religious and political authority, where religious leaders often assumed role as moral mediators and advocates for social justice. As noted by Mbiti, and I quote, "I am because we are," unquote. This reflects the communal nature of African societies, where the spiritual and the social spheres are deeply interlinked. This interconnectedness has allowed public theology to emerge as a critical discourse addressing issues such as governance, human rights, and ethical development. The role of public theology in Africa can be understood through several key dimensions. First, it serves as a platform for advocacy against social injustices, drawing upon religious teachings to challenge oppressive systems. For instance, during the apartheid era in South Africa, Religious leaders, particularly Archbishop Desmond Tutu, play a crucial role in mobilizing communities against racial segregation, declaring that moral authority must be utilized to fight injustice. This historical precedent illustrates the potential of public theology in galvanizing collective actions and drive social change. Secondly, public theology fosters a commitment to democratic governance and accountability. In many African nations, religious institutions have taken on the responsibility of promoting ethical leadership and civic responsibilities. Scholars like Gifford argued that public theology can enhance civic engagement by encouraging voters to participate actively in democratic processes. In this way, religious organizations can contribute to the establishment of more accountability and transparent governance structures. However, the influence of public theology is not without challenges. The rise of sectarianism and religious pluralisms poses significant hurdles to cohesive public engagement. As religious diversity increases, the potential for conflict can undermine the common goals of public theology. Additionally, the political manipulation of religious sentiments can distort the integrity of public theology, turning it into a tool for personal political gain. These challenges necessitate a critical examination of how public theology can navigate the complexities of contemporary African societies. So this paper will critically examine the role of public theology in shaping Africa's social and political landscape through case studies from South Africa, from Nigeria, Kenya, and Liberia. By analyzing these examples, the proper aims to highlight the contributions of religious leaders and institutions in advocating for democratic governance, human rights, and ethical development while addressing the challenges that accompany such efforts. Ultimately, this exploration will underscore the significance of integrating faith and public theology in fostering sustainable development and social equity across the African continent. Let's now move on to the historical context. Firstly, we're going to deal with the theological foundation in Africa. The roots of public theology in Africa are deeply intertwined with the continent's religious and cultural heritage. The historical development of Christianity in Africa, particularly during the colonial era, played a critical role in shaping the public theological discourse. As Christianity spread across the continent through European missionaries, it was often met with resistance and adaptation, leading into the emergence of indigenous theological perspectives that sought to reconcile traditional African beliefs with Christian teachings. This blend of faith and culture laid the groundwork for public theology, allowing the religious leaders to engage with pressing social and political issues. Prominent African theologians such as Desmond Tutu, Kwame Bediako, have significantly contributed to the discourse on public theology. Tutu in particular emphasized the need for a theology that not only reflects spiritual beliefs, but also actively engages in the fight against social injustices. His advocacy during the anti-apartheid movement highlights how public theology can serve as a moral compass for political action. Similarly, Bediako argued for a contextual theology that addresses the unique challenges faced by African societies, emphasizing the importance of integrating faith with social and political realities. The role of religion in African societies. Religion has historically played a central role in the social fabric of African communities. As noted by Mbiti, and I quote, African peoples are notoriously religious, unquote. This statement underscores the significance of spirituality in everyday life, where religious beliefs shape social norms, values, and community interactions. The church, as an institution, often transcends spiritual guidance, becoming a powerful agent for social cohesion and moral authority within various African societies. The interplay between religious and political authority is particularly notable in many African nations. In some cases, religious leaders have acted as intermediaries between the state and the people, advocating for justice and accountability. For example, during the 1994 Rwanda genocide, religious institutions played a mixed role. Some clergy participated in violence, while others risked their lives to shelter and protect victims, demonstrating the profound influence of faith and moral choices. The impact of colonialism and post-colonial governance. Still talking about the historical context. The impact of colonialism cannot be overstated in understanding the historical context of public theology in Africa. Colonial powers often sought to impose their religious beliefs and political structure on African societies, leading to significant social upheaval. The legacy of colonial rule has had lasting effects, including the marginalization of indigenous practices and a complex relationship with Western religious traditions. This historical backdrop has shaped contemporary public theology as religious leaders grapple with issues of identity, justice, and reconciliation in post-colonial contexts. Following the independence, many nations face the challenge of establishing democratic governance while navigating the remnants of colonial rule. Public theology emerged as a crucial voice in advocating for human rights and social justice, often filling the gaps left by weak political institutions. In countries like South Africa, religious leaders play a vital role in the struggle against apartheid, emphasizing the moral imperative to challenge oppressive systems. The church's role in social justice movements during this period illustrates the potential of public theology to drive political engagement and societal transformation. What are the contemporary developments on our discussion on the historical context? In recent years, the role of public theology in Africa has evolved in response to new challenges, including globalizations, economic disparity, and political instability. The rise of religious pluralism and the growth of evangelical movements have also influenced public theological landscape, introducing new perspectives and methods of engagement. As African societies continue to confront complex issues, public theology remains a vital framework for addressing the intersection of faith and public theology. The historical context of public theology in Africa, characterized by a rich tapestry of theological foundation, the enduring influence of religion in societal structure, the effects of colonialism, and the ongoing struggle for social justice in post-colonial governance. Understanding this context is essential, or understanding this context is essential for analyzing the contemporary role of public theology in shaping Africa's social and political landscape. I want to move now to discuss to you or with you the public theology and political engagement. And under this section, I'll be dealing with the advocacy for human rights and social justice and the democratic governance and accountability. Public theology and political engagement. Public theology serves as a vital mechanism for engaging with political and social issues in Africa, advocating for human rights, promoting democratic governance, and fostering accountability among political leaders. This section of my paper explores how public theology influences political engagement across the continent, illustrating the transformative potential through various case studies and theoretical frameworks. I want to talk about the advocacy for human rights and social justice on a political engagement. One of the primary roles of public theology in Africa is advocacy for human rights and social justice. Religious leaders and institutions often leverage their moral authority to challenge oppressive systems and call for accountability. For example, during the apartheid era in South Africa, the church emerged as a powerful voice against state-sanctioned racism and injustice. Archbishop Desmond Tutu's leadership in the South African Council of Churches exemplifies how public theology can mobilize communities for social change. Tutu asserted, and I quote, "If you are neutral in situation of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor," unquote. This sentiment resonates throughout many African contexts where religious leaders have acted as advocates for marginalized communities. Public theology also provides a framework for addressing social injustices rooted in poverty, gender inequality, and discrimination. In countries like Nigeria, faith-based organizations have been essential in advocating for the rights of women and the vulnerable populations. These organizations often combine religious teachings with social activism to promote policies that combat gender-based violence and enhance women's participation in public life. By framing these issues within a political or a theological context, religious leaders can inspire collective actions and challenge societal norms that perpetuates injustice. Democratic governance and accountability on the public theology and political engagement. Public theology emphasizes the importance of democratic governance and accountability as crucial components of a just society. Religious institutions can often play a vital role in promoting civic engagement and encouraging citizens to hold their leaders accountable. In many African countries, churches and mosques have initiated voter education programs and civic responsibilities campaigns. For instance, in Kenya, religious leaders actively participated in peace-building efforts during the contentious 2017 to 2028 post-election violence, advocating for peaceful elections and encouraging citizens to engage in democratic process. Furthermore, public theology's advocacy for ethical leadership is crucial or critical in combating corruption and fostering transparency in governance. Like in Uganda, religious organizations have taken a stand against corruption, calling for integrity and accountability among public officials. The Inter-Religious Council of Uganda has been instrumental in promoting ethical governance by encouraging religious leaders to speak out against corruption and engage with political leaders to foster transparency. This engagement reinforces the idea that public theology is not merely about spiritual matters, but it extends to the realm of political ethics and governance. At this section of my paper, I would like to focus on some key case studies that led to public policy engagement. And I want to title this section, Case Studies of Public Theology in Political Engagement. And I want to commence by talking about South Africa, the anti-apartheid movement. The anti-apartheid movement in South Africa serves as a profound example of public theology impact on political engagement. Religious leaders, particularly within the African National Congress and the South African Council of Churches, utilize their platforms to galvanize support for the struggle against racial injustice. Tutu's prophetic voice and moral leadership were instrumental in mobilizing both local and international communities against apartheid. His advocacy for nonviolent resistance and reconciliation laid the groundwork for a more inclusive and democratic South Africa that we have today. I want to move to Nigeria. In Nigeria, faith-based organizations have played a significant role in promoting peace and stability amid ongoing ethnic and religious conflicts. These organizations often engage in interfaith dialogue, seeking to bridge divides and foster mutual understanding among diverse communities. For example, the Nigerian Interfaith Dialogue Forum has facilitated conversations between Muslims and Christian leaders, advocating for policies that address the root causes of violence and promote social cohesion. This approach exemplifies how public theology can serve as a catalyst for peace building and conflict resolution. Let me talk about Kenya doing engagement and electoral processes. Kenya's electoral processes have been heavily influenced by public theology, particularly during the times of political turmoil. Religious leaders have called for peaceful elections and have actively participated in civic education initiatives to promote democratic participation. The role of the National Council of Churches of Kenya in advocating for electoral reforms and transparency during the 2017 general election highlights the importance of public theology in fostering a culture of accountability and civic responsibility. I want to conclude this section on Liberia, public theology and peace building. Liberia provides a compelling case study of the role of public theology in political engagement, particularly in the context of the Civil War conflict and post-war reconstruction. The country's turbulent history, marked by civil wars from 1989 to 2003, underscores the significant role those religious institutions and leaders play in advocating for peace and reconciliation and social justice. Liberia's civil wars were characterized by extreme violence and human rights abuses, leading to widespread displacement and suffering. The conflict was fueled by various factors, including political corruptions, ethnic tensions, and economic disparity. As the violence escalated, religious organizations emerged as critical voices for peace and reconciliation. The Inter-Religious Council of Liberia, formed in 2001, became a prominent platform for collaborations among various faith communities, including Christians and Muslims, in their efforts to end violence. Public theology in Liberia has been instrumental in advocating for peace and social justice during and after the civil wars. Religious leaders used their moral authority to call for an end to hostilities and promote reconciliation. Notably, the work of women's religious organizations play a critical role in peace building. The Women of Faith Network, for instance, mobilized women across different religious backgrounds to advocate for peace and participate actively in peace negotiations. In 2003, during the peace talks in Accra, Ghana, religious leaders from Liberia, representing various denominations, appealed to warring factions to cease hostility and engage in dialogue. Their efforts culminated in the signing of a comprehensive peace agreement, which paved the way for the establishment of a transitional government and eventually led to the election of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf as Africa's first female president in 2005. In post-war Liberia, public theology continued to play a vital role in Liberia's recovery and rebuilding processes. Religious institutions have been at the forefront of reconciliation efforts, promoting forgiveness and healing among communities affected by the war. The Interfaith Religious Council of Liberia has organized interfaith dialogues and community outreach. Programs aiming at fostering understanding and reconciliation between former combatants and the victims of violence. Additionally, public theology has informed the discourse on governance and accountability in Liberia. Religious leaders have been vocal in advocating for good governance, transparency, and the rule of law. They have called upon the government to address issues of corruption and to ensure that justice is served for the atrocities committed during the Civil War. This advocacy reflects a broader understanding of public theology as not just a spiritual endeavor, but a critical engagement with political and social issues. Despite the significant contributions of public theology to peace building in Liberia, challenges still remain. The country continues to grapple with issues such as corruption, economic inequality, political instability, which can undermine the gains made through theological engagement. Moreover, the ongoing religious pluralism in Liberia presents both opportunities and challenges for public theology. While it can foster greater dialogue and cooperation among different faith communities, it can also lead to tensions if not managed effectively. The case of Liberia illustrates the profound impact of public theology in shaping political landscape and fostering peace and reconciliation. Through the mobilization of religious communities and the advocacy for social justice, public theology has played a critical role in addressing the legacies of conflict and promoting democratic governance. As Liberia continues its journey towards recovery and development, the integration of faith and public policy through public theology will be essential in fostering sustainable peace and social equity. Let me take the time to talk about challenges to public theology's political engagement. Under this section, I'll be talking about the issue or the challenge of sectarianism and religious pluralism. Then I will talk about political manipulations of religious sentiment. I will talk about internal divisions within religious communities. And then I will conclude that section on socio-economic challenges. While public theology has the potential to significantly influence the social-political landscapes in Africa, it also faces numerous challenges that can limit its effectiveness and impact. This paper explores these challenges, including sectarianism, political manipulations of religious beliefs, the complexity of religious pluralisms, and the internal divisions within religious communities. Sectarianisms and religious pluralisms. One of the most present challenges to public theology in Africa is the rise of sectarianism and religious pluralisms. As African nations become increasingly diverse in terms of religious belief, the potential for conflict between different faith communities also arises. Sectarian tensions can hinder collaborative efforts for social change, as religious groups may prioritize their own interests over collective action. For instance, in countries like Nigeria, the ongoing conflict between Christian and Muslim communities has led to violence and social fragmentations, which complicates the ability of public theology to unify diverse groups around common goals. Religious pluralisms, while offering opportunities for dialogue and cooperation, also presents challenges for public theology. The presence of multiple faith traditions can create frictions and competition for influence in public discourse. Religious leaders may find it difficult to articulate a shared theological framework that addresses the needs for a pluralistic society, leading to fragmented efforts at social engagement. This fragmentation can dilute the message of public theology and make it challenging to advocate effectively for social justice and democratic governance. Political manipulations of religious sentiments. Another significant challenge is the political manipulation of religious sentiments. In many African countries, political leaders may exploit religious beliefs for their own gain, using religion as a tool to consolidate power or distract from pressing political issues. This manipulation can undermine the integrity of public theology and its moral authority. For example, during election cycle, some politicians may align with themselves with certain religious leaders or appeal to religious sentiment to garner support, while failing to address the substantive issues facing their constituents. This political exploitation can create a mistrust between religious leaders and their communities, as people may perceive them as conniving in the political conspiracies. The resulting skepticism can lead to disengagement from both religion and politics, and making it difficult for public theology to mobilize communities for social change. Internal divisions within religious communities. Internal divisions within religious communities can also play a role as a challenge to public theology's effectiveness. Different denominations or sects may have divergent views on social and political issues, which can complicate efforts to present a unified front. For instance, in countries like South Africa, while many religious leaders have united against apartheid, others have been less vocal or have supported the status quo due to political or theological affiliations. This lack of consensus can weaken the overall impact of public theology in advocating for social justice and democratic governance. Additionally, the emergence of new religious movements and evangelical groups can further complicate the landscape. These groups may prioritize different theological perspectives over social issues, leading to competitions rather than collaboration among religious organizations. Consequently, public theology may struggle to establish a cohesive narrative that resonates across diverse religious communities. Socio-economic challenges. The socio-economic challenges in many African nations also present challenges for public theology. High levels of poverty, unemployment, and inequality can limit the capacity of religious institutions to engage effectively in public life. Many religious organizations may find themselves focused on immediate humanitarian needs rather than long-term political advocacy. This focus can divert resources and attention away from systematic issues that require theological engagement and advocacy for public reform. Moreover, the economic constraints faced by many religious organizations can hinder their ability to mobilize effectively. Limited financial resources may restrict their outreach efforts, or capacity to engage with political leaders and institutions, diminishing the potential impact of public theology on governance and social justice. Despite its transformative potential, public theology faces numerous challenges that can limit its effectiveness in shaping Africa's social and political landscape. Sectarianism, political manipulation, internal divisions, and socio-economic constraints all contribute to the complexities surrounding public theological engagement. Addressing these challenges will require a concerted effort for religious leaders, institutions, and community to foster unity, strengthen moral authority, and enhance the capacity for effective advocacy. As Africa continues to navigate a social political landscape, the integration of public theology into public policy and social justice initiative remains essential for achieving sustainable development and equity. May I zero in on the future directions for public theology in Africa. And here I will talk about promoting interfaith dialogue, sustaining civil society engagement, enhancing theological education, and then lavishing technology for advocacy. As Africa continues to grapple with complex social, political, and economic challenges, the role of public theology remains crucial for fostering sustainable development and social justice. This paper explores future direction of public theology in Africa, emphasizing the importance of promoting interfaith dialogue, strengthening civil society engagement, enhancing theological education, and lavishing technology for advocacy, leveraging technology for advocacy. Let's talk about promoting interfaith dialogue. One of the most promising avenues for the future of public theology in Africa is the promotion of interfaith dialogue. Given the continent's rich history of religious diversity, fostering the collaboration among different faith communities can enhance social cohesion and collective action on present issues. Interfaith initiatives can serve as a platform for dialogue, reconciliation, and mutual understanding, helping to bridge divides that may otherwise lead to conflict. Religious leaders and institutions can organize interfaith forums to address common concerns such as poverty, healthcare, and human rights. These forums can facilitate discussions that transcend the doctrinal differences, allowing diverse groups to unite around shared values and goals. For instance, the Inter-Religious Council of Liberia has effectively brought together Christian and Muslim leaders to work collaboratively on peace-building initiatives, demonstrating the potential for interfaith dialogue to address societal challenges. Strengthening civil society engagement. Public theology must deepen its engagement with civil society organizations to amplify its impact on social and political issues. Collaborations between religious institutions and grassroots organizations can create powerful conditions that advocate for systematic change and community development. By joining forces, these groups can mobilize public support and influence policy decisions and hold political leaders accountable. Engaging with civil society also allows public theology to address the grassroots causes of social injustices more effectively. For example, partnerships between faith-based organizations, NGOs, have the potential to enhance educational opportunities, health, care access, and economic empowerment for marginalized communities. Such collaboration can help to create a more inclusive society where the voices of the oppressed are heard and valued. Enhancing theological education. Social justice policies relates to enhancing theological education. Theological education plays a vital role in shaping the future of public theology in Africa. By incorporating social justice, ethics, and political engagement into theological curricula, seminaries and theological institutions can prepare a new generation of leaders equipped to address contemporary challenges. This education should emphasize the importance of public theology as a framework for understanding and responding to societal issues. Furthermore, promoting contextual theology that reflects the unique cultural and socio-political realities of African society enhance the relevance and the impact of public theology. Theological educators must encourage students to engage critically with their context, fostering a sense of responsibility to address social injustices and advocate for common good. Leveraging technology for advocacy. In an increasingly digitized world, leveraging technology can enhance the effectiveness of public theology in Africa. Social justice reforms, mobile applications, and online campaigns offer unique opportunities for religious leaders and organizations to reach wider audiences, mobilize, support, and advocate for social change. For instance, digital platforms can facilitate the dissemination of messages related to human rights, governance, and social justice, allowing for greater engagement with younger populations who are often more digitally connected. Moreover, technology can facilitate interfaith dialogue and collaboration across geographical boundaries. Online forums and webinars can bring together diverse religious leaders and communities to discuss present issues and share best practices for advocacy. By embracing technology, public theology can adapt to the changing landscape of communication and enhance its relevance in contemporary society. The future of public theology in Africa holds significant prominence for addressing the continent's multifaceted challenges. By promoting interfaith dialogue, strengthening civil society engagement, enhancing theological education, leveraging technology for advocacy, public theology can continue to serve as a powerful force for social justice and democratic governance. As African societies evolved, the integration of faith and public policy through public theology will be essential in fostering sustainable development, social equality, and lasting peace. May I conclude? Public theology plays an important role in shaping Africa's social and political landscape, offering a framework for addressing contemporary challenges such as human rights violations, governance issues, and social injustices. Throughout this paper, we have examined the historical context of public theology in Africa, highlighting its emergence in response to colonialism, civil conflict, and a quest for democratic governance. By engaging with case studies from various African nations, including South Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, and Liberia, we have illustrated the transformative potential of public theology in advocating for social change and promoting ethical leadership. Despite its significant contributions, public theology faces numerous challenges that can undermine its effectiveness. Sectarianism, political manipulation of religious sentiments, internal divisions within religious communities, and socio-economic constraints all pose as obstacles to the successful engagement of public theology in the political sphere. These challenges necessitate a re-examination of strategies used by religious leaders and institutions, as well as prominent or a commitment to fostering unity and collaboration across diverse faith communities. Looking ahead, the future of public theology in Africa is promising, particularly with the potential of promoting interfaith dialogue, strengthening civil societal engagement, enhancing theological education, and leveraging technology for advocacy. By embracing these new directions, public theology can continue to serve as a vital force for social justice, peace building, and democratic governance. The integration of faith and public policy remains essential for addressing the complex socio-political realities faced by Africa or the African societies today. As Africa navigates its path towards sustainable development and social equity, the role of public theology will be indispensable. Religious leaders and institutions must recognize their responsibility not only as spiritual guides, but also as active participants in the public sphere. By championing the cause of justice, accountability, and ethical governance, public theology can contribute to the creation of a more just and equitable society for our Africans. God bless you. I look forward to interacting with you. Thank you.